I'm Dave Coplin, and for the last 10 years, I have completely failed in getting any of you to change the way in which you think about the world of work. Look, now when I say I failed, let me be really clear, right? This was not some part-time hobby of mine, right? I have literally dedicated the last 10 years of my life trying to get people like you and your organizations to redefine the way in which you choose to work. A world where work is no longer a destination. It's not somewhere you go. It's an activity. It's something you do. Look, I've written books about this. I've been part of whizzy internet animations that have got quite popular. I've even worked for the technology companies that make the technology that make this new world of work even possible. And yet, nothing. Absolutely bugger all. Now, I get it, right? This is different. We're trying to approach work from a different perspective. We're thinking about work as an activity, not as a destination. But look, here's the office of the 50s, right? Here we've got a human being sat in front of some technology and a communication device. 70 years of progress. And when you think about how much progress we've made in the last 70 years, and yet in the world of work, nothing has changed. We still have a human being sat in front of a piece of technology and a communications device. And there we've stayed. The world around us has moved on, the technology has moved on, but we continue to trudge in to the office every morning, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, enduring that most humiliating of human experiences, which is the commute. And then the virus happened. And amongst the most terrible context, the most terrible experience that's been driven through our society, some silver linings are start to emerge because the virus forced us to change our behavior. The virus forced us to break free of the inertia that was holding us back. Do you remember back in the first lockdown when we all got sent home? And we spent those first few weeks just loving. We were there high-fiving our mates on Zoom calls. We were living the dream. I've spent the first 4 weeks of lockdown basically in a business shirt from the waist up and me pajamas from the waist down. I've even forgotten what wearing shoes feels like, right? It was an amazing world. But as that sort of experience has gone on, as lockdown, part 2 has continued, and we're now into this world of just end-to-end, back-to-back, monotonous Zoom calls. People are eating on them. They're still turning the bloody microphone off halfway through. And all of a sudden we start, oh God, I'd love to go back to the office. Well, look, the point is there's a baby in the bathwater here. Of course, the best ever experience is being there in person. But video, if we get it right, video calls offers the next best thing. And if you want to understand how it works, we have to go back to the 1970s. We go to a psychology professor, a guy called Albert Mehrabian, who did this really fascinating research about the efficiency of communication. And his research basically showed that communication is far more efficient when you have access to all of the rich data that sits around us. His research basically showed when I communicate with you, only 7% of your understanding comes from the actual words that I use. 38% also comes from my intonation, the tonality, the way that I express those words. A whopping 55% comes from my body language, the way in which you read my body language and how it relates to that communication. If you add all of those three things together, you get really effective communication. Now transfer that to a world of video, where I've got the words. Well, if I was just interested in the words, I'd send you a bloody email. I've got the intonation. If I just wanted the words and the intonation, well, I'd pick up the telephone. If I want to get that body language, well, then I need video. Now look, 50 years have passed and lots of academics have sort of argued over whether the numbers are right, but we all know innately from our own experience, communication works well when we can hear each other and we can see each other. And this is where we fail with video because we treat video calls like they're a one-way communication. It's basically me joining the meeting. Well, you've got to think about the other side of that. Your video call is basically the meeting joining you. And if I can't see you, and if I can't hear you, then it's not going to be an effective way for you to communicate. So if you're up for that, and if you're up for the best that video calls can offer you in 2021 and beyond, here are 3 simple things you can do to transform your video call experience. Number 1, ditch Wi-Fi, right? Wi-Fi is the devil's work. It's essentially, nobody knows how Wi-Fi works. Not even the people who invented Wi-Fi know how it works. And we all know how dodgy it is. Somebody comes home, the microwave goes on, the Wi-Fi goes down, the dog stands in front of the router. You're there thinking, the thing about Wi-Fi is it turns what it should be a synchronous communication into an asynchronous communication. And you've got to ditch it. And there is a really easy way to ditch Wi-Fi is you go and you rummage around, you maybe buy one, it'll cost you all of 10 quid, buy a bloody cable. Plug the cable into the hole in the back of your router and plug it to the equivalent hole in your laptop and bye-bye Wi-Fi blues, right? No more dodgy connection, no more I'm gonna have to turn the video off because the Wi-Fi is a bit dodgy. You're there, you're hardwired, baby, straight into the heart of your meeting. That's number 1. Number two, you've got to think about your image. No, seriously, you have got to think about your image. And your image right now is being portrayed by a really, really tiny camera that's stuffed into whatever device you're using. Now, unless you're using some smartphone, some high-end smartphone as your video camera for your meetings, you're probably using a really cheap bit of hardware that comes bundled inside the device, inside your laptop. And there are two problems with that. Number one, it's just low quality, but number two, and probably more importantly, the angle of the dangle is completely wrong. That camera, if you're sat with your laptop on your desk like you're working at it, that camera is just offering a lovely picture of your chin, right? Which nobody wants to see. I mean, as lovely as your chin might be, right? That's not the angle we want. So two really simple things you can do to improve your appearance. Number one, if you can't do anything, simply put your laptop higher, right? Get that camera eye level, because you've got to remember that camera is essentially how other people see you. It's the eyes of the people who are looking at you in the meeting. And if you can, get another camera, get an external webcam, something that's going to be a bit better than the basic camera that's in your laptop. So that was the second thing you do. The third is equally simple and equally as cheap. Now, we've all seen these calls and we've probably done this a few times yourself, but how many times have you been in a video call and the person that you're speaking to is sat right in front of a really brightly lit window, right? And all you can't make anything out. All you can see is this silhouette. It's like there's some villain, right, on some movie and their sort of identities being preserved. I'm guilty of perpetuating several poorly lit video calls, right? Don't be that guy. For the sake of getting one of your bedside lights, or even if you can, a special light just to sat behind your camera to illuminate your face, right? That's the whole point. The reason you're on a video call is so we can see you. It's that simple. So if you can stick a light there, we're all good. So look, three super simple things. Hardwire your connection, get yourself a decent camera, but at the very least, lift that camera up to eye level. And then third, be lit up, right? If you do those three things, I guarantee you your video calls will go from being dodgy and useless to being the next best thing to being there in person, because that's what they should be. Ladies and gentlemen, do that for 2021 and I guarantee you, you will enjoy all that technology has to offer. I've been Dave Coplin. Thank you so much for joining me.